I'm going to share what to do if your Google Ads Manager account, which is also known as an MCC, was hacked, and if it's been probably suspended by Google when it gets hacked. I'm going to share some things to do to try and fix your problem, because it is a massive problem that you're facing. And then I'm also going to share ideas to further secure your accounts in the future, as well as if you're watching this and you haven't been hacked, but you want to prevent a hacking from taking place. Again, I'll share some tips that will hopefully help with that. So first of all, let's say what to do when you are hacked. Well, the very first thing is you've got to fix the hack. So if you're in a situation that I've seen other agencies and people be in recently, you probably have realized you were hacked and your MCC has been suspended by Google because they've caught the hack and there's weird policy violating things going on in the account, and so they've suspended you. And you're probably freaking out. You're in a situation where you're trying to run ads for clients or your own business and you're not able to because everything is stopped, and that's a massive problem. I feel your pain. We've talked this year with many businesses, agencies, large brands spending millions and millions of dollars with Google who have been in this situation because there is a lot of hacking and compromising going on. So the first thing you need to do is you need to, again, fix the hack. You need to figure out how people got in, and was it specific users that were compromised? Was it a shared login someone got access to? Whatever the situation, one thing we see happen a lot right now is these phishing emails where people think they are logging into Google Ads and they're actually logging into an attacker's database and they're giving the credentials to that attacker. That happens a lot. So whatever the case may be, you got to try and figure out what happened and lock it down. So if it's a particular user, locking down that user, changing passwords, cleaning up malware, everything possible to make sure you actually fix the issue. Because if you don't actually fix the issue and then you go to Google, A, it's going to happen to you again, obviously, because you haven't fixed the issue. And B, if Google still sees a problem, they're not going to reinstate you. And it's going to be even harder to get reinstated because they see that you haven't fixed the problem. So that's just table stakes, is fix the problem. And as you fix the problem, document as much as possible. Take screenshots of IP address logins to your devices, of weird things in change history in the ad account, and users being added, being deleted. Document as much as you can about what happened and what you've done to fix it, because that's going to be really, really important in you proving your case to Google that there was actually a hack and that it wasn't you who went into your account and started running fake or problematic policy violating campaigns. So A, fix the hack, document as much as possible. Then there's a form that Google has where you can report that you were compromised. So you need to report that to Google. Again, make sure you fix things first before you report it, and include as much of that documentation about what happened as possible. And that goes to Google to then investigate and see, do they actually believe there was a hack on their end, what's going on, etc. And if you are an agency or a large advertiser who has a Google rep, you would involve them in this process as well. But I will tell you that there's limited things that the reps are able to do. Again, we've seen situations with people spending, a tremendous amount of money with Google, and it still took a while, even though they had reps at Google, to get resolution, because Google does not move quickly. There's a process and a timeline for things to happen, and unfortunately, their timeline does not match up with your timeline. And so you do need to be aware and be prepared that this is probably not going to be an immediate fix. It may take some time. It may take days. It may take, hopefully not, but it could take weeks, depending upon the situation, and also depending upon the quality of the documentation you're able to put together when you submit to Google, showing what went wrong, how you got hacked, and how you fixed the issue. So you want to submit that compromise form with Google. If you have a Google rep, work with them and work through that process of trying to convince Google, again, of what went wrong, what you've done to fix it, and hopefully of getting the account reinstated. Now let's talk through things that you can do to prevent hacks from happening. Well, the first thing I would say is really good communication with your team and anyone who has access to Google Ads accounts, because there is a lot of phishing and all sorts of attacks that are going on right now. Here's one example. There is a known attack that I've personally seen where people will reach out to you. They're pretending to want to hire you to manage their Google Ads campaigns, and they'll use the name of a reputable business that you can look up in Google and be like, oh yeah, it's a real business, but they're not actually coming from that business. They're only pretending to reach out on behalf of that business. And eventually they will send you an invitation to access a Google Ads account for purpose of an audit, for example. And so you'll be like, okay, yeah, cool. Let me accept that invitation. You go through, you log in. And what has actually happened is you've actually given them your credentials for logging into your ad account, because this is not a real email. It's a phishing email that they're using to get your information. So don't accept any kind of invitations to access ad accounts from anything other than very, very clearly you know exactly what's going on. You know they're legit, and it could not be phishing. So that's really important. Also, be really careful if just Googling something like Google Ads login and clicking the first thing that comes up to log in, because there's also a known attack that I've also seen examples of where people are running fake Google Ads login ads on Google Ads. And you click the first thing that comes up when you search to log into Google, and instead of actually going to an official Google page, you go to something that looks identical to your Google login page, but it actually is operated by a scammer who then collects your information as you log in. And it's not necessarily clearly, you might not realize that you did this because they might redirect you to regular Google Ads after you enter your information. So as far as you know, you think you're just logging in, or, oh, maybe the password didn't work the first time, let me try again, that type of thing. But actually, you've just given them the login credentials for your ad account, and then they log in and start doing problematic things. So be incredibly careful about what emails you're interacting with and where you're actually logging into your Google Ads accounts. Other things you can do are limiting the users who have access to your Google Ads Manager accounts and any ad accounts that you're working with. So make sure on a regular basis you're doing hygiene. You're removing past employees, you're removing freelancers or agencies that you added to audit things or whatever. Make sure that the only people who have access to the ad accounts that you have access to are people who actually need that access right now and are actively using it, and get rid of everyone else. That just reduces the number of things that could go wrong. The second thing I would say is also obviously make sure you are using two-factor authentication. And I can't stress this enough. You've got to have 2FA turned on. You should have it required for your organization so that people can't be added as users to your ad accounts unless they have 2FA enabled. And I would actually go a step further too and say that you might want to consider requiring 2FA via authenticator apps as opposed to just straight up text message, SMS messages, because it's not hard for people to do what's called a SIM swap, where they basically can create a situation. I won't get too detailed here, but they'll create a situation where they actually get the text message that's supposed to go to you and it goes to them. And even though you have 2FA set up, they're still able to gain access to the account. And if you use something like an authenticator app, that makes it much harder for that type of access to take place. Also, really be careful of shared login. So if you have one email address that lots of different people are logging into, well, that puts you at greater risk because there's anybody who gets hacked who has access to that login now has access to that login. Whereas if you require your team to use their own separate login to get into each account, that's greater safety, and it's also easier to lock down things and fix problems if any type of hack does occur. So those are all things you can do to prevent hacks, or at least mitigate the chance of hacks from occurring. And if you are dealing with a situation like this, or you just want some proactive help or ideas related to securing your accounts, we'd be happy to help. Here at StubGroup, reach out through stubgroup.com and let's talk.